everybody. Welcome to a Veteran Uncensored. My name is Chris Rodriguez, and tonight we are witnessing a seismic escalation in the Middle East. Just earlier today, Israel launched a bold and unprecedented military strike dubbed the Operation Rising Lion, targeting what they allege are key nuclear weapon development facilities deep inside Iran or Iran. Israeli officials claim this operation was preemptive in the last resort, really, to neutralize what Prime Minister Netanyahu called a clear and present existential threat to their country, to their existence. But the story didn't stop there. Moments after the strikes, Iran retaliated with what state media is calling a direct response to Zionist aggression. Explosions were reported near Israeli military outposts. Cyber systems were disrupted, and there are confirmed reports of drone swarms launched towards Tel Aviv. And Israel has been attacked really throughout the whole day. Um, this is no longer a back and forth rhetoric where they just talking and threatening. This is actual war in the Middle East at the moment. President Donald Trump said that, and actually Rubio said that the U.S. is not really involved in this. However, and President kind of had the same rhetoric, but then basically throughout the day we've been informed that the U.S. has been backing Israel in this whole situation. But to be fair, Trump has warned Iran, to give up their weapons, do it peacefully, and unfortunately for them, they have not conceded. Now, tonight we'll break down what we know so far, the timeline, the political stakes, the international reaction. We'll react to a lot of videos from Fox News, from CNN. We also got the live footage here, live coverage of those particular channels in case something comes up. We can jump on immediately. It is 10 p.m. at Central Time in the United States of America. The region is bracing for what could become an open conflict between two powerful sources in the Middle East, and the whole world is watching. Of course, we know that Israel is a much powerful entity. Iran do have their weapons. Missile strikes are really what their business is about, what they're really about. When it comes to military force, they're not really that good. They're not well trained, and so I don't think anybody fears them as far as that's concerned. Any other option, their thing is going to be missile strikes. And by the way, they have been landing a few as far as the last few hours is concerned. So we're going to be reacting to a lot of news lately. So please hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. It is a bit late in America, but regardless, we are live. It is, so we're not joking around. We're going to be reacting to what's happened throughout the day. And I want to know your opinion. Here's the thing. I want to know what you think. So please comment in the live chat. We're live on Rumble. We're live on YouTube. We weren't going to be live today. Yesterday's live was really good, and I appreciate everybody's support. And today we were going to be off, but then this whole thing erupted out of nowhere. So we kind of do have to react to everything that's happened from the minute that the bombs went through in Iran all the way to the latest trending news. And right now, we got some breaking news in Tel Aviv that Iran strikes Israel military headquarters. So this is, I guess, breaking news, or was this recorded? I'm not 100% sure. But I'll tell you what we're going to do right now is go to this right now and see what they're saying on Fox News, and this is breaking news, by the way. So let's get to that.
Israel and the hundreds of thousands of Americans living there, but the U.S. is not involved in strikes on Iran. But the Iranians are threatening. They're saying this to CNN tonight. Iran will intensify its attacks on Israel and target the regional bases of any country that tries to defend it. Meantime, here in Washington, the White House sharing a photo of the president who was in and out of the Situation Room on Friday, where he spent much of the afternoon with his National Security Council. And as you just showed there, those live pictures, as day envelops the region, we continue to monitor the situation as both countries, and for that matter, the entire region, remains on high alert, Trace.
All right, so that was going on there. So I guess Trump is meeting with some security, but Iran retaliates with missile attack on Israel. That is though we're seeing right now. This might be from earlier today as well. It is saying breaking news. It is live, but it might be a rerun. But regardless, that's what's happening right now at the moment over there in Israel. And listen, Israel knew they were going to attack. So at some point, there is no. Uh, they knew this was going to happen, so they knew to brace themselves, and they have told the Israeli people. And to be honest, I feel really bad for the Israeli folks in this particular case, because I mean, they got a war going on with Gaza, in Gaza, and then now they're going to have to deal with Iran as well. It is a bit tough. Listen, I don't want to be sound biased or anything like that. I'm not a war expert by any means, but I know what I read from multiple sources, not just one in particular, multiple sources. And to be fair, Iran right now is under a very terrifying regime, and I feel bad for its people, and it's not their fault. They're being subjugated to this regime, and the sooner they're out of the picture, the better for them. The better they can go back to the country that the ones were. In as far as I'm concerned, I wasn't alive at the time, but there's always been stories about Iran being a beautiful country back in the day, and unfortunately, they've been dealing with these types of situations. So, let us go from the beginning. The news broke out, and it was actually during, I believe, Jesse Waters' show when he was live, or he's the one that broke it out on Fox at the time. That's when it happened, when he was live. They called it a state of emergency. Netanyahu confirms Israel strikes targeted Iranian nuclear facility. Let's react to that video right now.
What's new, Trey?
Jesse, a lot of developments for you. We are hearing tonight from Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who confirmed these strikes took place with dozens of Israeli jets in the skies over Iran. The Prime Minister saying that the Natanz nuclear facility, this is the main enrichment site for Iran's nuclear program, was targeted in these strikes, along with a number of other locations. As we look forward here, there are a number of things to talk about, but again, Israel tonight is bracing for the possibility that there is a direct response in the coming hours from the Iranian regime. Iran's top IRGC officials had promised that if their nuclear facilities were attacked, that they would target Israel directly with a variety of missiles that they did not use in previous strikes against Israel. Remember, last April, Jesse, was the first time that Iran ever directly attacked Israel. But the timeline here is very important. On April 1st of 2024, a top IRGC commander was killed in an Israeli strike in Damascus, Syria. It took the Iranians 12 days to respond to that strike that took place. Now, whenever the Iranians targeted Israel again in October of 2024, the response window was even shorter. Israeli officials are concerned tonight that the response window to this strike that is targeting the nuclear facilities in Iran will be even shorter than those previous attacks. And so again, as we look forward here, Israel has declared a state of emergency. Special instructions have been texted to every person in this country to stay close to bomb shelters. And the country's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is releasing his first statement tonight. And I will read you just a little bit more of what the Prime Minister said. He said moments ago, Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival. He confirms that not only were nuclear sites targeted in Iran, but also some of the long-range missile capabilities belonging to the Iranian regime. We have been talking with officials across the region over the past several weeks as the ongoing negotiations were taking place. This was largely considered an outlier in what could take place, again, with the scheduled 6 rounds of talks supposed to happen on Sunday.
All right, let's go right now live with CNN as they are. John Conricus is speaking right now live.
And interceptors. Those are two resources that are critical for Israel. And yes, I think it's widely known that Israel relies on the supply of them from the United States. So therefore, coordination and seeing things eye to eye and having the approval of the American administration is very important for defending Israelis in these attacks that we see on the screen. Most of them civilian. I know of also of military targets that have been hit, but most of the casualties in Israel today are civilian. And I think coordination here is key.
You know, we are hearing from Israeli sources that say that they took part in a deception operation to trick Iran into believing there would not be a strike. Did that play a big role in the ability of Israel to even pull this off?
Judging by the results, I think obviously the Iranians were deceived or were tricked into believing that they're safe and that there was no imminent Israeli strike. There was lots of talks here on CNN and many other places, Israeli media, about what Israel was doing. But I think in general that the Iranians thought that as long as negotiations are ongoing, they're safe and they can continue to waste time and they can continue to use negotiations as a shield from an Israeli attack. I wouldn't say that the Americans deceived. Israel probably did so, and deception is part of warfare. That's one of the basic principles. If you can cause your enemy to believe other than reality, and then that's a good thing. Sadly, our enemies do it, and they do it well. And bottom line, I think the opening salvo, you mentioned three important Iranian officials. We're talking about, as far as I know, more than 20 senior officers, 3- and 4-star generals, and very important nuclear scientists that were eliminated in that first salvo more than almost 24 hours ago now.
Wow.
Jonathan Conriquez, thank you so much for joining us. With me now, retired U.S. Army Brigadier General Steve Anderson, and also Jamil Jaffer, former counsel to the Assistant AG for National Security. Jamil, I want to go to you first and get your assessment of Iran's counterstrikes on Israel. I mean, were they weakened at all by Israel's attacks? Is it fundamentally evident?
Well, look, the last time we saw Iran go after Israel after the first set of attacks, they launched hundreds of drones, hundreds of ballistic missiles. This time, we had 100 drones last night, a few dozen missiles this time. They were able to impact Israel. They were able to land some missiles on target. The vast majority, like every time, shot down by a combination of Iron Dome, David Sling, the Arrow 2, and of course, now American THAAD and Patriot missiles as well.
Let me ask you about this, what is perceived as a threat, frankly, around the world, heard from Iran. They're warning that countries that defend Israel could face attacks on their military bases and also, of course, in the region. Is that a direct threat that you would interpret to the United States? Is the military going to be, are they thinking already about a response?
Absolutely, Laura. No doubt they're on high alert. I mean, we got 47,000 Americans in uniform in 9 different countries in the Middle East. Al Udeid Air Base, Bahrain Naval Base, a lot of troops at risk over there. No doubt that they are preparing for something to happen. And if that were to happen, that would definitely be a trigger. I mean, you'd see the United States, I think, get involved. But until then, I think that they're going to stay on the sidelines and let the Israelis handle this right now. But it's going to be a very big problem.
Well,
when you think about this,
it's going to be interesting to,
Jamil,
to see
we've already learned, of course, several top Iranian military leaders
for the U.S.
were killed.
to get involved.
We know that their nuclear facilities, they've also been hit. But there's still this question of whether Israel can destroy the nuclear facilities that are actually deep underground. Does Israel have that capability?
Well, look, Israel only has a certain amount of bunker busters that can go to a certain depth. They've got the Spice 2000, which is a 2,000-pound bomb. What they don't have is the U.S. massive ordnance penetrator delivered on the B-2 Spirit. That's the thing you need to get those really deep facilities. And getting Natanz, the deeply buried, the new facilities after 2022 at Natanz, and Fordo, which is a key enrichment facility, the Iranians have buried it deep enough that it's very hard to get those. So if the Israelis are going to go after those, they have to do it with forces on the ground. We've already heard about Mossad operations in Iran over the course of this last set of strikes. We'll see if they pull it off, but it's going to be very hard without U.S. weapons and U.S. delivery vehicles of the B-2 Spirit.
General, it sounds like they need to have the United States buy in and support.
Absolutely. I mean, we used to call it the mother of all bombs when we were in Iraq. We had 3 of them over there. They're incredibly capable. They can penetrate much, much deeper. As Jamil says, we've got to get those. If you're going to take out those nuclear facilities in Fordo that are dug in and deep, you're going to need the United States to be participating in this attack. Well,
that begs the question. I mean, the U.S. is saying, President Trump telling Reuters that we knew everything about the strikes. Knowing about the strikes and knowing that they might have to be called upon in order to participate somehow to get to those underground sites puts the United States military and the United States in a pretty compromised position then.
Yep.
I absolutely agree with that. It would be a problem for us to get involved in this too early. So we probably need some kind of a trigger, some attack that would give us, I think, the excuse to take sides. Right now, Israel is being able to handle this. They executed an incredible attack, brazen attack that was incredibly successful. They do not need the United States to get involved at this point. But if the Iranians expand this war, somehow escalate this, and they attack any American soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines that are exposed, or any American facilities, we definitely need to get on board with the Israelis, and we need to take down the nuclear capability of Iran immediately.
We're looking at live pictures right now of central Israel. Fresh damage from an Iranian strike that has happened just moments ago. We're seeing the results of that right now. And Jamil, I want to go to you on this because Netanyahu has said that the strike was carried out now because they suspected that Iran was close to being able to actually build these nuclear bombs. That seems to be at odds, though, with the U.S. intelligence assessments that we are aware of. So are there other reasons that might be at play for why now?
Well, a couple of things. One, in order to use a nuclear weapon, you need three things. You need the enriching uranium, you need a valid weapons design, you need a ballistic missile delivery system. What Netanyahu has said was he believed they're moving towards weaponization. That's a new statement. We'll see if that's true. Beyond that, we've seen the Trump administration go in a couple of different directions. We saw early on Steve Witkoff say it's fine if they enrich. The president walked it back. Then the president gave a little bit. Witkoff walked it back. Rubio's been consistent in saying no enrichment. That might have scared the Israelis to say if the Trump administration might get into a deal with Iran that allows enrichment, that's unacceptable. That's probably what drove them to ultimately say, we're going to take these strikes. You want us to do it or not? We're doing it.
I want to go right now because we have some video that's playing of what the damage has been from this new strike in central Israel.
Look at that.
We're obviously seeing damage to buildings and different structures as we see
and it is
different
live,
first
ladies and
responders who are arriving on the scene, walking over various debris with identifiable jackets. We are looking to see the assessment of whether civilians have been harmed. Obviously, we are seeing cars that appear to be severely damaged and buildings or structures of some kind that clearly are compromised in these early morning hours, dawn really just breaking in Israel. You know, General, when you're looking at this, and of course, the United States military is obviously watching this, so are other military bases and allies perhaps around the world as well. When you see this damage and the knowledge that the White House is saying that they had about the strikes, is Iran looking at this as everyone being complicit and therefore they feel as though they have been attacked and we are risking a potential war with ourselves as well?
That's probably the case. I mean, they probably feel that they've been, the noose has been tightened. I mean, if you look at what the Israelis have done over the last 18 months, they've taken down Hamas, they've taken down Hezbollah, the Palestinians have been laid down quite a bit, Syria has collapsed. I mean, the world, the Houthis have been hit hard by the Americans down south in Yemen. I mean, the world, the proxies that supported Iran over the last couple of decades, they have been decimated, really. And so the noose is closing on Iran. So they are getting desperate. And that's why I think you're seeing these attacks on civilian targets, is because that's really the only thing they can hit right now. They don't have the capability. They mass their missile attacks to try to get a few through. And when they do, they're hitting civilian targets. And it's very much the similar playbook that the Russians are using against the Ukrainians, by the way. They're trying to just essentially wreak havoc among the civilian population and take the hurt to the people.
Really quickly, does that desperation lead to diplomacy or rash decisions?
Well, I hope it's the former and not the latter. Hopefully that they are going to realize, hey, listen, we cannot win this war with Israel. They are better than us. They're smarter than us. They have complete intelligence dominance. They have air dominance, as you saw by a 1,000-mile strike deep into the heart of Tehran, in which you were able to hit targets. So they realize they are not going to win this in a tit-for-tat exchange. They've got to achieve some kind of a diplomatic solution. They're not going to win any other way.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. General Steve Anderson, Jamil Jaffer. We have much more ahead on this breaking news. Benjamin Netanyahu delivering a message directly to the Iranian people, raising questions about his endgame here. Plus, how is President Trump handling all this tonight?
Anyways, we're gonna get into that. Of course, CNN. We got CNN. We got Fox as well. Fox, I think they have resorted to come back and being live. They're not recording anymore because I'm seeing right now 6:18 in the morning in Israel. So Fox looks like they're back live. But let's go back to Fox's reaction to as Iran hits Israel with 3 waves of counter strikes. That was telling in itself. Laura Ingram reacting to this piece of news. Let's take a listen.
Now to Tel Aviv, where Fox News chief foreign correspondent Trey Yingst has been up all night, is standing by with all the details. Trey, what can you tell us?
Yeah, Laura, following that Israeli attack against Iranian nuclear facilities and top IRGC leadership overnight and into today, the Iranians have responded with 3 waves of ballistic missiles. This is Israel's version of the Pentagon, the Kiryat. And the building on this compound was just hit.
Please go back. Go back, please. Go back, please.
You can understand here, it's very tense at this specific location because the Iranians are now targeting the defense establishment of Israel. And so I'm going to have my cameraman pan up here to this building just across the street from the Kiryat. And so
This was 2 in the morning in Israel, 4 hours ago.
you can see it's very tense right here because, again, the Iranians were able to just strike a very significant target in Israel. As we move forward here, we do expect more ballistic missiles to be fired into this country. We understand that Israel's air defense system was active during this third attack. We were in the suburbs of Tel Aviv at a location that had been hit. 1 woman was killed there, and more than 20 were injured. As these missiles are coming in, an Israeli security source telling Fox News that the Americans are helping to shoot down some of this incoming fire. But as it gets more and more intense, it will be very difficult to do so. And so there are questions about what comes next in this conflict. Again, we're just sort of backing up here from this location. It's a very sensitive location. But the bottom line here, Laura, is that the conflict between Israel and Iran continues. The Iranians have launched around 150 ballistic missiles into this country today, some of them slamming into military establishments, into a variety of residential buildings. And as you can see off here in the distance, this is a shopping mall in the heart of Tel Aviv. There are both residential and commercial buildings around here, Laura, and they have been damaged in this most recent missile barrage launched by the Iranians. Laura?
Wow.
Trey, how badly have the residential sites been hit? Because Israel is now saying that what Iran did in its counter strike is basically beyond the pale. And so each side is saying, you did this, the results are going to be devastating for your country.
Yeah, absolutely. What we saw tonight, I have not seen in nearly 7 years of covering this story. We have seen rocket fire from the Gaza Strip with groups like Hamas and Islamic Jihad. We've seen precision-guided missiles coming from Lebanon with the Iran-backed group Hezbollah, ballistic missiles from Yemen with the Houthis. We were here last year in both April and October when the Iranians targeted Israel, and they targeted bases on the outskirts of major population centers. The site that we just got back from, where 1 woman was killed and at least 20 were injured, an entire block was wiped out. While we were there, every once in a while, the rescue teams, Laura, they would stop and they would tell everyone to be quiet. And they would call out for survivors under the rubble, and they didn't find anyone while we were there. And as we were live on Special Report, there was incoming missile fire, and we had to, in the middle of our hit, get to a shelter underground and wait as explosions happened right overhead. One of them so large, it shook the building that we were in. The site that we're at right now, again, it's a very sensitive site, as you saw some of those police and soldiers at the beginning of our conversation here wanting us to move back. They don't want us to show this specific area, but it was a hit that was trying to target directly Israel's version of the Pentagon, the Kiryat. Iran is using what they can to respond to Israel, but Israeli sources say this is going to go on for days, if not weeks, because the Iranians are now striking Israel with groups of ballistic missiles, anywhere from 50 to 100 missiles. And so while Israel can shoot down some of that fire, they simply cannot shoot down all of it. And what we saw tonight was truly unspeakable in terms of the escalation ladder of what is about to happen. Laura, I can tell you the Israelis are going to ramp up their strikes targeting Iran. They've already targeted nuclear facilities. They have targeted nuclear scientists. And they've also targeted the leaders of Iran's IRGC. They killed the top commander and General Salami. And this is a man who was responsible for preparing a missile strike against Israel. Just 2 days ago, he was threatening the Israeli state. And overnight, the Israelis targeted him in an airstrike, and they likely will not stop there. This is expected to continue for days, if not weeks. And this country remains at a state of alert, a state of emergency. And officials that we are talking to say they are urging the civilian population to stay close to bomb shelters, understanding that this is just the very beginning of what is a quickly developing war between Israel and Iran. Laura?
Trey, I know they don't want you to show it, but how badly was their version of the Pentagon, Israel's version of the Pentagon, hit by these attacks?
I'm going to have my cameraman just pan up to this building here that is on the compound of the Kiryat. And you can see these are likely offices. The building just next to it I've been in many times, but there is significant damage. They have teams there just trying to ensure that no one was inside at the time. Likely when the missile attack happened, any senior officials that would have been inside their version of the Pentagon would have been underground. But there is damage to it. And again, this just speaks to the types of targets that the Iranians are hitting. They are targeting not only residential areas, they are targeting military installations. And this is expected to escalate because they have advanced missiles. We have seen them provide the Russians with these very missiles that they are using against Ukraine. And now they are using these advanced ballistic missiles to target Israel. And again, despite the fact that there is some advanced missile defense systems that are on the ground here, from David's Sling to the Arrow 2 and 3 system, and the American systems, the Patriot system and the THAAD system, it is not enough to stop this incoming fire. And when we were live earlier today, around the 2 p.m. hour, it was so intense in Tel Aviv that they were not able to shoot down the missiles with these advanced systems. And as the missiles kept slipping past the air defense, they started to use smaller systems in an attempt to shoot them down. And we saw missiles slamming into the ground, causing significant damage and killing at least one person. And so as we move forward here, it is very clear that the conflict that is erupting now between Israel and Iran is different than anything that the region has seen. And it is substantially different from the conflict that has been ongoing for more than 600 days between Israel and Hamas inside Gaza. These ballistic missiles make the rockets that were being fired from Gaza look like toys. It is causing significant damage, wiping entire apartment blocks off of the map. Laura?
Trey, thank you. We'll check back soon. We really appreciate it. Stay.
Wow, that's been, and here's the thing. Israel's statements is that they attacked the nuclear weapon facilities. Surely leaders of Iran died, and surely that was their target. But they're arguing that Iran's targets are civilians, that they targeted anybody. They didn't even have a purpose for or an objective other than just destroy blocks of buildings, etc. Now that will if you're Israel, you will have to have had this in mind that they were going to do that. And as the reporter said they're sending tons of missiles, and in a quickly, and it is going to be very hard for Israel to stop these attacks. And so Iran's plan is not to hit their target 100% of the time, or if they send 100 missiles to be able to be successful 100 times. But as long as they destroy Israel, parts of Israel over and over and over, they're going to be happy with that. And it is unfortunate because people are dying left and right. And you saw this, the reporter right there. I mean, Israel is shook. Israel is shook, and as he was saying, he hadn't seen that in a long time, especially, obviously, Israel versus Hamas in Gaza. He hasn't seen anything like that. In Iran, a lot of people underestimated Iran's power, and I just don't know. Because Fox was saying, and we're going to get to that video, that Iran awakened, and actually October 7, Hamas awakened a sleeping giant. And I will agree that Iran is probably doesn't have the same power that Israel has, especially if you got the backing of the United States of America. However, it's very, very, it's not going to be an easy target. And right now, we got breaking news from from Fox News, saying that 78 reportedly killed in Iran after Israeli strikes. So Israel has targeted. Let's take a listen. This is live right now.
Platforms, Karg Island, all their ports. I think they have 6 shipping ports. If Israel wants to really punch Iran in the jaw, they're going to take out all of that oil infrastructure. I don't think we're going to like that, though, here in the U.S. I saw the J.P. Morgan report earlier this week that said oil could double, maybe 120, 130 a barrel. That's going to impact the CPI.
Stocks are going down, by the way,
especially in the summer driving here over in the United States.
While I've got you, I've got to get your take on the India air crash that killed 240. You had 1 survivor, which I was kind of amazed about. The New York Post writes the following here. A passenger who reportedly flew on the doomed Air India jet just 2 hours before it crashed, killing more than 200, posted shocking video in which he says nothing was working in the cabin, including lights, air conditioning, and the seat back display screens. Is there a connection with the electrical and the engines or engine failure? What do you think, Wiz?
I don't think so, Trace. 787 has a lot of redundant electrical systems. Sadly, at the end of the day, and all the video I'm watching and some of the Dreamliner pilots I'm talking to, my brothers and sisters say this just might be a clear case of as soon as they got airborne, the pilot flying calls for positive rate of climb, gear up. And the pilot not flying is supposed to put the landing gear handle up. An experienced pilot maybe could have just selected the flaps up instead. Trace, this jet was full of bodies. It was full of fuel for a long flight. It was over 100 degrees there. It did exactly what I would expect it to do. If you retract the flaps early instead of the gear, it's going to settle right back down exactly like it did. However, could be a total loss of thrust, could be a whole bunch of things, but I don't think your direct TV flashing in your seat in front of you had anything to do with it personally.
Right. I got to go, but seat 11A, 1 survivor, right by the exit. Anything to do with it, Wiz?
No, go out and buy a lottery ticket. Clearly, God said it. It's
Crazy.
Not your day, my friend.
Oh, it's just unbelievable. Wiz Buckley, great to have you on the show. Good insight as always. We appreciate your information.
Thanks,
well,
Trace.
6:30 Saturday morning in Israel. We're now monitoring the situation on the ground as Iran retaliates with waves of missile strikes. We are also on the ground in downtown Los Angeles as hundreds of Marines arrive ahead of the No King protests, a.k.a. anti-Trump protests, expected this weekend. Live report.
Interesting. So we're going to get into Fox. Is they're going to be live here in a second as well. We're going to continue to give you live coverage, but we're also going to bring you some news that were, reported hours ago to get that reaction as it happened in that moment. But this was Iranian missiles striking Israeli military headquarters in unprecedented attack. And this is what their Laura Ingraham show was talking about, and this was pretty tough to take. They got to what they call the Pentagon of Israel. That is very, very
massive amount of fire coming to Tel Aviv right now.
Look at those strikes.
Yaniv, get ready to pull it off the sticks. Get off the sticks. All right, let's go. Time to go. Okay. Guys, come on. Now, like many people in Israel, our very own Trey Yangst, who was in that last video you saw, has been in and out of bomb shelters all night. He joins us now with the very latest. That was pretty harrowing for you, Trey. Glad you're okay and the crew's okay. What's the very latest? Yeah, Sean, thank you. It's been an intense evening here in Israel. The Iranians launching around 150 ballistic missiles into this country in 3 separate waves. That video that you saw there was the first wave. The other waves caused a lot of damage to locations not only here in Tel Aviv, but also in the suburbs. We visited 3 different sites where missile impacts happened or fragments damaged or destroyed buildings. And I can tell you that it was a very sad scene to see. The first location that we got to in a very populated neighborhood of Tel Aviv, they were taking women and children out of this building. You could just see the fear in the eyes of these kids. They didn't know what was going on. They just heard the explosion as their parents were waiting with them in bomb shelters. A lot of damage there. But then we made it to a second site when we were live on Special Report talking with Brett as another missile attack took place. And when you saw the damage at this second site in the suburbs of Tel Aviv, it looks like an entire block was wiped off the map. At that location, Israeli police tell us one woman was killed and at least 20 were wounded. As we were there, rescue workers were digging through the debris, and every once in a while, they would have everyone be quiet, and they would call out, looking for survivors under the rubble. They had a thermal drone overhead to see if there were any people that were still trapped. And then that missile attack took place yet again, and we had to run for shelter going into the basement of an apartment building. And then there were explosions outside so strong they were shaking the street. This is what the Israeli people have been dealing with tonight as the Iranians are directly targeting both military and civilian facilities in this country, sending nearly the entirety of Israel into bomb shelters. And Sean, tonight we are getting reports out of Iran about explosions just east of the Iranian capital of Tehran, an indication the Israelis are once again striking back against the regime, targeting facilities just outside of the Iranian capital. Sean?
You know, Trey, one thing that Israel understood the risk. Israel also understood the risk of a nuclear-armed Iran. And I'm going to get into this in my monologue. When you think of the tens of thousands of rockets that have been fired from either Iran or from their proxies, the Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas over the years, and you try to identify and relate with that, they knew this risk coming into this. They were as prepared as possible. They certainly were prepared for the onslaught and the attack. They certainly outperformed. I think you reported earlier today, the Iranians felt that they were hit 10 times harder than they ever expected. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the Iranians are certainly preparing to continue attacks against Israel because for them, this is a worst-case scenario. The Israeli strikes not only targeted their nuclear facilities, but killed their top nuclear scientists and then killed the head of the IRGC along with his entire leadership for the Iranian Air Force. So this was not only an embarrassing attack for the regime, according to analysts in the region who have discussed what took place, but also it is a real military loss for the regime. And when we look at what's going to happen next, there's real concern that this is going to drag on for a matter of days and possibly even weeks. I've been talking with officials throughout the region today, speaking with not only Israeli intelligence and security officials, but officials in the Gulf, like the Qataris, and even the Iranians, trying to get an understanding of how everyone sees this situation. And they realize this is an unprecedented moment in the Middle East because it has an opportunity to change the reality for the region. You mentioned that Israel's been at war for more than 600 days, and we have seen the missile fire from places like Yemen with the Houthis there, from Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, and of course the groups inside Gaza like Hamas and Islamic Jihad. What we saw tonight was quite different, Sean. We saw direct missile attacks targeting major population centers. And the reality is that when these barrages come in so intense and so powerful, even with Israel's advanced missile defense systems, like the David Sling or the Arrow 2 and 3 system, with the support of the American systems that are currently on the ground, like the Patriot system and the THAAD system, it's not enough. And that's the big question moving forward as the Iranians will continue to target major population centers in Israel, is how the Israelis will be able to keep up with this incoming fire while they're still going on the offensive. As we know tonight, striking targets just outside of the Iranian capital. A lot of moving parts here, and the region is bracing for very tense days ahead.
All right. CNN and Fox News right now saying that Iran retaliates against Israel with new barrage of missiles. Let's go to Fox real quick and see what they're having to say about this.
To try to confirm in case there's any other news to that end. I've been following Reuters and the EAP and, of course, our sources on the ground. Now, it is also super important to point out, once again, the White House and Pentagon saying we are in a defensive posture. We're supporting the Israelis. We are not, meaning the U.S., engaged in offensive actions toward Iran. But as I pointed out earlier, the Iranians say, listen, if you, meaning the U.S., decide to defend the Israelis, all bets are off. We may target you as well. We'll keep an eye on it for you at this very hour. Quiet, a little bit more quiet right now. Trace, back to you.
Let's go to
Kevin
CNN right now. Let's go to CNN.
President Trump is trying to manage multiple international crises and is trying to negotiate peace deals, it would seem. But he's been coming up short, shall we say. And I wonder what you think the flaw in his strategy has been. Has he overestimated the willingness of the different entities to actually negotiate, or has he underestimated the tension or the long-standing history in the areas?
Yeah, it's a fascinating question, Laura. Look, you can invite two of the best negotiators I know, one of whom I work for, James Baker. The other is Henry Kissinger. You can invite them back to do this thing, and they would have a difficult time. These are very heavy lifts. But in answer to your question, I think, number one, Donald Trump is discovering some very hard truths. His own vaunted negotiating skills are open to considerable argument. And you need a strategy. You need a strategy on Russia, Ukraine. You need a strategy on Israel, Hamas. You need a strategy on the US and Iran. And that strategy involves serious diplomacy and leverage, using American leverage and power, although it has limits, to move both parties in these three conflicts forward. And frankly, the president talks a big game, but in terms of discipline, leverage, applying it effectively, I think he's fallen short.
I mean, Bobby, how much sway does the U.S. even have over Israel at the moment? I mean, can Israel proceed without the United States' support?
I don't think so.
Well, Israel has plenty of leverage with ironically, to Aaron's point, the U.S. does not have a lot of leverage over Iran. It has a lot of leverage over Israel, but is completely uninterested in using that leverage. And this is not just Trump. This also applied to the Biden administration and administrations going back several decades even, that the United States seems highly reluctant to use the leverage it does have with Israel, and it doesn't have any leverage with Israel's enemies, particularly with Iran. I think the point that Aaron was making earlier is worth repeating here, that Trump doesn't really have a strategy. He has, at best, some tactics, and these are highly fluid and they change from moment to moment. He's nothing if not mercurial. A great deal depends on what he's seen in the latest position papers, of what the latest person who's spoken to him has said to him, and he changes his mind all too often. He has not shown any inclination, and by the way, nor have the people around him, to do the long, hard graft of diplomacy. It's not enough to say that you want to be a man of peace, and nor is it enough to threaten to use the big stick that previous presidents have deployed. Bluster is not a strategy, but that is all that Trump is deploying here.
Aaron David Miller, Bobby Ghosh, thank you both so much. Still ahead tonight.
Very interesting. Let's move on to Fox News here.
Look, President Donald Trump, he gave Iran 60 days to try and strike a deal because Donald Trump is operating as though Iran is a Western nation who cares about diplomacy. Unfortunately, Iran is a terrorist nation. So there was only so much that they were willing to go. Of course, I, like many Americans, do not want to see this conflict escalate. But Donald Trump and his administration are privy to much more information than you, Senator Reid are, and probably either approved this or gave Israel their blessing because they know stuff that we don't know. So I trust President Trump and what this administration will do to protect America and our interest.
Meantime, Tiffany, Hakeem Jeffries on MSNBC said the following.
Talked about restoring peace to the Middle East. That has not happened. And so the whole Trump presidency has been a complete failure, characterized by chaos, cruelty, and corruption. And, you know, I'm hopeful that cooler heads will prevail in the Middle East and the situation is de-escalated.
anything to take a dig at Trump. They don't realize this is a masterclass in politics, the way this whole thing was done. It is a masterclass, and if this thing turns out like we think it's going to turn out, Democrats are in big trouble.
Well, and that's the whole thing, right? This is the art of the deal. And as Brianna said, they were not coming to the table. They were hardliners, and as President Trump said to Dana Bash today, and he said, well, the hardliners are dead. And she goes, Mr. President, does that mean that Israel killed them? He says, well, they didn't die of COVID. So I think what we realize now is that they're going to have to come with a whole new shiny team to the table. They are going to come willing to negotiate, and they're going to come to play ball, which, Hakeem Jeffries, the poor guy, he has no other hobbies except trying to come up with insults because they lost.
Whether it's the riots, doesn't matter what it is, they just pivot and it's just hate Trump. This could be really the end, Franklin, of Iran as we know it for 50 years. I mean, the people could rise up. This could be, we are watching history unfold before our eyes.
And that is what we need. That is what the West needs. Right now, what Israel is doing is basically fighting the West war, and so we don't have to. So, people are saying that we need diplomacy, we need to negotiate with Iran. Well, Democrats tried to do that. They gave money to Iran, they lifted sanctions on Iran, and how did that work out? They are funding Hamas. October the 7th happened just less than 2 years ago. Right. They also funded Hezbollah. They fund terrorist groups that hate the U.S., hate Israel. And no, Israel is not to blame for what it's going right now. Actually, we should be grateful that we have Israel right now strong in the Middle East, so we don't have to fight them because they hate our values, they hate our principles, and actually they want to come after us.
Siaka Massaquoi, remember when Arnold Schwarzenegger used to be a Republican? Remember he ran for governor as a Republican in California? Here he is on Jimmy Kimmel talking about the unrest in Los Angeles.
They make it out to like it is a war zone, the whole Los Angeles, the whole city or the county. And the fact of the matter is it's maybe like 0.001% of the area of Los Angeles has problems and there's a protest. For decades, almost 4 decades, we have had a problem where they talked about immigration reform, comprehensive immigration reform. But the Democrats and the Republicans, both of the parties, have no interest in solving this problem because they use that to raise money.
For the record, total BS on both. But just the whole thing that makes it is he's now saying it's a real estate thing, If you only blow up one building, it's totally fine. They're saying the whole thing in L.A. No, they're not. They're saying it was in downtown. They were saying going after cops. It was a mess in downtown where it happened. And you don't have to blow up the whole city for something to be an incident. You can't just say, oh, by the way, it was just the Palisades. Well, it only lasts 5,000. Oh, 1 million other homes are fine. That's what they're saying, Siaka.
Well, exactly, Trace. And here's the other side. When would it be okay to get these guys in? After they moved over to Silver Lake, Echo Park, West Hollywood, Hollywood? Was that going to be when it was going to be okay? Because we all remember the Summer of Love. It got all the way up to North Hollywood where I was living when I was back in L.A. And the fact that they're even saying this, it just gives you an example of how privileged Arnold has been by living behind his gated community up in the hills, that the average person, we don't want this to spread out like it did before with these feckless mayors that were literally telling their police officers to stand down. And the fact that he's like, because no one wants comprehensive border reform, guess what? It's about who's in charge. Trump got in charge and it dropped to 96% of no one crossing the border. So you tell me, do we need more laws or we just need a strong president in there to enforce the laws? I don't know, Arnold.
Yep, that's interesting. Listen up. We're going to call it off. It's been a good show. We just want to try to give you the latest coverage on this whole situation going on in over there in between Iran and Israel. It looks like Israel has been taking some hits, as of late. And I'm assuming it won't be the last we hear from Israel. They're going to be retaliating, I am sure. So we're going to be bringing you coverage of that as well if we can. But regardless, hit the like button, subscribe. We're live on Rumble. Follow us on Rumble. Subscribe on YouTube at Veteran Uncensored. Plain and simple. My name is Chris Rodriguez. Thank you very much. I will see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye, folks. Take care.